Tamasato ma sadgamaya Tamaso ma jyotirgamaya Mrityorma amritangamaya Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om, lead us from the unreal to the real. Lead us from darkness to light. Lead us from death to immortality. Om, peace, peace, peace. The subject of my talk today is the value of myths and symbols. We are passing through a season of different worships. We started with Durga Puja, then we performed Kali Puja, and we shall be performing Jagadhatri Puja. So these pujas, especially those who are not accustomed to Indian customs of different pujas, worships, will appear to be very bizarre. Bizarre in a sense that does not make any sense, or they cannot make any sense out of what is being done. So we try to explain those things as much as possible, because in Hinduism there are many ways of worshipping God, or many ways of realizing God, or you can say many ways of realizing your true self. So in that way, that great liberty is given to Hinduism from the ancient times. If you compare Hinduism with other religion, you will see that no other religion has given the freedom of spiritual practices that has been given, that is available in Hinduism. All other religions are structured. Structure in a sense, you have to do this, you will get this result. If you do not do this, you will get this result. In that way, they are really formulated. There might be some cultural reason or environmental reason or whatever it may be, they have developed in that way. But in India, Hinduism had that great liberty of practicing your own spirituality in whatever way you like. Only thing is that you should not disturb others. That means you be quiet with your own spiritual practices and don't try to push those things to others. That is the important thing. That is why it has proliferated. Even now the proliferation is going on. Different persons do spiritual practices in different ways. We don't mind, and if he is successful, we follow him. In that way, you will find even today there are great followings of great spiritual personalities. And of course, traditionally, those who are predecessors, there are great followings even today. So probably in future also it will be like that. That means when somebody will be successful in finding God or finding true self in his own way, he or she will have the great following, because we are, after all, seekers. Seekers in a way that we may not understand today what we want, but sometime in our life we feel that we are really bound. That means we are living in the realm of limitations. We try to transcend that. So that thought, when will come to us, really we shall become a seeker, and then we shall find out something which will be suitable for us. And in that way, if we are really serious, we shall follow that, and we shall progress in spirituality. So that is the way spirituality progresses. So now today the subject is, as I told you, the value of myths and symbols. I shall give this talk or discuss about these two subjects from the point of view of Indian spirituality mostly, but there is some general ideas that need to be shared. So myth, you know, the word myth gives an impression of something falsehood. That means which is not really true. That idea comes to us. But when it is called mythology, then it becomes a little bit complicated. Complicated in a sense that we try to find out some other meaning of the word myth. So myths are like these in the context of mythology, in the context of a religion. it is like this, that something which actually may not have happened or might have happened, but it is not possible to find out the truth. What is truth in a sense, that means physically truth. That means whether it happened or not happened, we do not know. But still, people are following that. The best part of mythology is this, that by following which actually we get great satisfaction of spiritual life. And not only that, there are many people who are really sincere by following the mythological methods of mythological, the way mythology has been said, by following that they have become successful in their spiritual life. There are many, many examples in that. So myth, according to modern scholars, like these myths are generally believed to be statement of facts which are thought to be true by the people who use them. So it may not be, a myth may not be true for everybody. That is not possible. But to some people actually the myths will be true. And that is the beauty of myths. And they actually adhere to them very strictly. They think that myths are really true. So it is sort of what is called axiomatic truth to them. A myth is not exactly true, at the same time it is not totally false also. So true in a sense, that means we cannot find out, as I told you, the truth behind that, whether it had happened or not happened, because that myths are such that nowadays, that means from the point of view of today's view, it is totally unbelievable. You cannot believe all those things. It may happen like that. But at the same time, it has the effect-wise, actually, they are really true. That is the advantage of these myths. So in that way, they are not false. False in a sense that means it is completely what is called rejectable. It is not like that. You had something in it, and which actually is very useful. In that way, actually, we use them. Myths are motivations to required behavior in dealing with some important reality. Effectiveness and not truth is the criterion to be applied to a myth. That means effectiveness. If somebody is following some truth, somebody is following myth, and if he finds that it is effective for him, that means it is doing good to him, spiritual good to him. So then actually it is effective. That means then actually it is good. But there is something which you do not believe will not do good to you. So in that way, for some person it may not be effective. For example, when one is thirsty for water or for God, he may be directed to the reality in question by true statements about it. On the other hand, a story may be told under such circumstances that one will be impelled to act in the manner required to find the thing, water or living God. So in that way, actually, the story may be said in such a way that we will find the object, and then this object is found, and then that is the effectiveness of the what is called myth. The latter is a myth. Now let us see very concrete example is there. You know Ganges. Ganges is very much in our what is called in our newspaper, in our what is called, and even in media, because Ganges water is very, very polluted, most polluted water probably of all the rivers. So naturally we should reject that because it is not good for us. But you see, thousands, not thousands, millions of people are taking bath in the Ganges, which is really very much polluted. So why it is happening? The thing is that it has been said that Ganges is Brahmabari, that means it has come from heaven. That means association is this, that it has come from the great spiritual source. So by touching it, actually one becomes purified. What to say about taking dip in it, or what to say about taking dip every day, if you call it, there are many persons do that. So this polluted water, nowadays everybody knows that actually there are many studies, that means it has been studied scientifically how polluted the water is. But still you will not see that people are really refraining from taking dip into the water. And what to say? Sri Ramakrishna said by touching Ganges water one becomes purified. and he used to take bath in the Ganges. Rather, just like that, today also you'll find many people are doing that. And how about Swami Vivekananda? Vivekananda is a very present person and very, what is called, discriminative type. That means he did not believe anything until and unless he actually found proof of it. He used to drink Ganges water also. So he used to say that, once a question was put to him. One devotee, the devotee means a disciple, asked him, do you believe that if somebody dies in Varanasi, that means in Kashi, which is known as a Lord Shiva's own place, and it is said in our scriptures that the person, whatever it may be, he or whatever might he has done in his life, if he dies in Varanasi, he will be liberated, his soul will be liberated. In our scriptures it is said, and many persons, that means Ramakrishna also believe, and many persons, even today you will find thousands of people are living with the expectation that when they will release, when their soul will be released from the body, they will get liberation, they will not be born again. So one disciple of Swami Vivekananda asked Swamiji that, do you think that if somebody dies in Banaras, he will be liberated? Swami Vivekananda said, no, I don't believe that. I don't believe. Then another question is put, do you think that if somebody drinks Ganges water or takes bath in the Ganges, will be liberated? He says that, yes, I do believe that. So this is a sort of contradiction. And probably he has found the result of what is called sipping Ganges water and found that it purifies that. There are examples like that. You know, in ancient times, ancient means even maybe a few hundred, even 100 years ago also probably, it was a belief that if somebody goes out of India's boundary, goes to the west, Kalapani as it is called, black water as it is called, he crosses the black water, he becomes impure. And also what to say about different types of food that are available in what is called outside the boundary of India, even in India also in that way. So Swami Vivekananda came to the west, so naturally he crossed the Kalapani. So naturally he became impure. That was the general concept of the Hinduism at that time. And not only that, just as a corollary, I am saying that he was debarred from entering into the Kali temple, that means Dakshineshwar Kali temple, because he had crossed the Kalapani, that means that black water. It happened in that way also, when he returned from the west. So naturally, Swami Vivekananda himself also believed to some extent that. That means by passing through the Kalapani, as is called black water, he had become impure, and also by staying in the west and eating different types of food that were available, because he did not have any choice. It was a matter of survival. So he had to eat different types of food which are not really prescribed in the Hinduism. So his body has become impure. So once it so happened that he was supposed to go and meet Holy Mother Sarada Devi. And he was very much really not upset, but he was very nervous, because he thought that he is so impure, how he will touch the feet of Holy Mother. So he was crossing, he was in Belur Math at that time. Belur Math was in the nascent stage at that time. So Holy Mother was in the Udbodham, that means in Calcutta. So he had to cross the Ganges river, which is in between Calcutta and Belur Math. So he was passing in that boat, and the disciples or the others who were actually accompanying him saw that Swami Vivekananda was taking little Ganges water and putting into the mouth like this, sprinkling into the mouth. In that way, literally very nervous. So I asked, why you are doing that? This Ganges water is so impure, you will fall ill. No, he said that, no, this Ganges water is pure, I am trying to purify myself so that when I touch Holy Mother's feet, actually, I shall feel that I am pure. So that type of belief he had. So these are the examples of myths. That means some people believe and they get the effect, and in that way, those things have come down to us. So Sri Ramakrishna touched, Ved, always used Ganges water. Swami Vivekananda believed in the purifying power of Ganges water. Ved drank to purify his body and mind. So these are the what is called contemporary examples of how myths actually work. I have seen one person in Belur. In Belur, you know, it is on the bank of the Ganges, and there are steps there, they are called ghat, and people take that. Very few people nowadays, especially monks, I do not see too many, take bath there because they know the water is not very pure. So they have arranged, actually after all, the Ganges water after purification is used for bathing and drinking purposes also. But in general they do not do that. But I found one person who was sitting on the bathing hut, that means where the monks take bath. So he said that, Swami, I am taking bath since 18 years here. And not only that, one Swami, not very well-known Swami, but one Swami actually asked me, please keep the steps of this ghat clean, so that when Swamis will come and take bath, they are not slip or whatever it may be, they find that place clean. So every day before taking bath, I clean the steps of that ghat and take bath. So see what a great belief. That means one Swami told him, and he had got hold of that, and in that way definitely he is getting some good result, and he is doing that. So these are the power of myth, that helps us. Now in religion, there are three aspects, that means philosophy is there, which is very important to understand and to convince especially the present day people what religion is and in what way actually it is useful to us. Then there are rituals also. Rituals, actually I shall have the opportunity of talking about ritual in one of my talks. Rituals are the practices which have been practiced by the predecessors. Predecessor means those who have been spiritual path. They did practice something, and those have been concretized, if you call it, and people think that by practicing the way that person had done, probably if we do practices in that way, we shall also be successful in our spiritual life. Suppose Sri Ramakrishna, he was a ritualistic worshipper. When he was appointed in the Dakshineshwar Kali temple, he was just a simple, ordinary priest. He himself has said he did not have any idea of becoming what is called a realized person or an avatar that we call him. He was just like an ordinary person, a priest. But it so happened that he wanted to find out the truth. That means all the rituals that has been prescribed in the scriptures, which he was supposed to do for the worship of the Mother Kali, he used to do because it was his profession. Otherwise, he will not get his monthly allowance. So he had to do that. But the questions came that whether these are true or not. Then actually he went deeper and deeper, and then we see that he was successful. So the point is this, that by doing what he had the realization, that becomes concretized in the rituals. So others also follow in that way. And of course what he had followed had been followed by others also. So in that way the path is always there. But they are, you can say, verified, if you call it in our today's language. So in that way, rituals are also very important in all religions. Then this mythology. Mythology is a vast subject, especially in Indian context. In all other religion, mythology is there. And they are stories, but I do not know because I am not really an authority to talk about other religions. But still, especially in Christianity probably to some extent, but in other religions, mythologies do not have that type of impact on the practitioners because they are very much structured. That means there are some authorities, they have said you do this, if you do not this, you will get that. In that way, they are very structured. That means it is sort of simplification, but at the same time, very much what is called liberty is taken out of the practitioner. That is also true. So in Hinduism, we see that mythology has a very important part of the spirituality. So in this way, we see that if you call mythology legends are popularly accepted narratives of varying authority, glorifying stories of lives of saints also. That means mythology has two aspects. One aspect is that ultimate reality, God is there, that is beyond our comprehension. But by symbols, that also I shall talk about you. about that. So symbols are there, and in that way we concretize them. And legends are also there, which actually inspires us. That means in that way we find that we get spiritual benefit out of studying them and following them. And it has been said that the nearest term for mythology in Vedanta literature will be Puranas. So coming to the Hinduism, as we know that Vedas are there, Upanishads are there, then we have what is called Bhagavad Gita is also there, and also other sorts of books are there which are the Prakarana Grantha. That means they are summarized teachings which are really sort of handbook for the practitioners. They are called Prakarana. Prakarana means that means which are Prakishtarupa Karana, that means which can be practiced. And these Puranas are there. Puranas are very important. These are the stories, as I told you, it is equivalent. That means if we want to use the word mythology in the context of Hinduism or Vedanta, Puranas will be the best word for mythology in Hinduism. So there are set of books which are known as Puranas. There are 18 major Puranas are 18 in numbers. There are other sub-Puranas also, and they are traditional stories that has come down to us. And in that way, they are followed, and they are very important. I shall tell you a few sayings of Swami Vivekananda, how actually they affect us in our lives. So Swami Vivekananda said, some historical truths is the nucleus of every Purana. Historical truths. That means Hinduism is so antiquated. That means it is so ancient. That means in those days there are no what to say about writing. That means only thing, oral things were there. In all places, oral things were the first beginning of everything. And later on, of course, they are structured. We see that the great Vedavyasa, who actually edited the Vedas, he also structured these Puranas for the benefit of the posterior, that means for the present day people. The story of Vedavyasa is like that. He actually saw, as you know, his time was about 3000 or 3500. He was what is called, he was a living person. He was not a legend. He was not a part of the mythology. He was really a person. That means he lived in flesh and blood on earth. So he found that religion is getting deteriorated. That means people are really not following religion properly. So for that, he thought that if they have to survive for future, that means how actually in future people will realize God or do spiritual practices. So he structured the Vedas, that means the ancient scriptures in a proper format, and gave the responsibility of propagating them to different disciples. So in the same way also he collected all the stories, Puranic ancient mythology, and gave responsibility of studying them and propagating them to another set of disciples. So in that way actually the Puranas have come down to us. So he is a great reformer of Hinduism in ancient times that we see. And he is also the composer of Mahabharata, that means the historical book, which is also a Purana. The difference between this epic and this Puranas is that epic is definitely a fact, that means it was a historical fact. But Puranas actually during the time of this epic also the Puranas were there, that means there's further ancient. So in that way they have come down. So he says, Swami Vivekananda is saying, the object of the Puranas is to teach mankind the sublime truth in various forms. And even if they do not contain any historical truth, they form a great authority for us in respect of the highest truth which they inculcate. Authority, that means it has been said in the Purana, such and such person, Lord Shiva has said in this way. So naturally we believe that. And that means we get the good effect by believing that. So in that way, we do these pujas, and they are part of Puranas. That means we have faith. Faith in a sense that has been strengthened by what is called many spiritual seekers. For example, Sri Ramakrishna worshipped Kali. Kali is a part of the Purana actually, that means mythological Purana. There is no way you can find out that one woman was like this and all those things. It cannot be found out in that way. But the effect we can see even in our age, the great effect is there. So now Swami Vivekananda is giving the example of Ramayana. This is a very, what is called, very not simplified, that means very important way of analyzing how actually Puranas really work. Take the Ramayana for illustration and for viewing it as an authority on building character. Ramayana, you know the story of Rama is considered an ideal person. Ideal person in a sense that means human beings are made of good and bad things. That means it is not possible to exist without the mixture, because that is the way it is framed. But Rama is considered to be the ideal, the most ideal. That means there is no other person who actually can compare as a human being to compared to Rama. The reason is that Rama always exemplified all the good qualities that can be attained by any human being. So in his life that is projected. That means in his story actually that has been delineated. So Swami Vivekananda is saying the sublimity of the law Rama should have, let me see, take Ramayana for illustration and for being it as an authority on building character. It is not even necessary that one like Rama should have ever lived. So if it is a myth, then also it is really, it doesn't matter. What matters is the illustration that has been left, the story that has been left for us. The sublimity of the law propounded by Ramayana or Bharata does not depend upon the truth of any personality like Rama or Krishna. And one can even hold that such personages never lived, and at the same time take those writings as high authorities in respect of the grand ideas which they place before mankind. So this is the beauty of mythology. So Swami Vivekananda is saying that, well, suppose the story of Ramayana as an example of this mythology. We take that example. So the story that has come down to us, the story actually is the great story of what a human being should be possessed. That means to be a great person. So that is the bottom line of that, what is called Purana that we see. It doesn't matter whether Rama lived or not. That also is saying to that extent. But historically we know that Rama and Krishna actually lived. Nobody will disbelieve nowadays. So our philosophy does not depend upon any personality for its truth. This is also a very important statement. That means our philosophy, that means all philosophies of the world, if you see, that means it has some authority behind it. This person has said, that is why I accept it as true. That person has said, that is why I accept it as true. So, but Hinduism does not believe in that. The truths are really self-evident. It is acceptable or provable by anybody who actually practices the method. So it doesn't depend whether it has been said by somebody that this is true, that doesn't matter. So that point Swami Vivekananda is highlighting. He is saying, our philosophy does not depend upon any personality for its truth. Thus Krishna did not teach anything new or original to the world, nor does Ramayana profess anything which is not obtained in our scriptures. So the point is these persons actually personified those things, but it doesn't mean that because they inherit those things or they taught these things, they are true. They are independently, the truths are really independent of these personalities, that is the point. So it is to be noted that Christianity, compared to other religions, Swami Vivekananda is saying, it is to be noted that Christianity cannot stand without Christ. Because Christ has said this, then actually it is true. So in that way actually Christianity stands. Mohammedanism without Muhammad and Buddhism without Buddha. But Hinduism stands independent of any man for the purpose of estimating the philosophical truth contained in any Purana. We need not consider the question whether the personages treated of therein were really material men or fictitious characters. So that is the important aspect of Indian mythology that Swami Vivekananda is pointing out. The object of the Puranas was the education of mankind. Puranas actually, as you know, are storybooks. You know, Bhagavatam is a great Purana, and even today we will see that thousands of people listen to that Bhagavatam. That means there are kathakars, that means there are storytellers who tell those stories and people attentively listen to that. And these are for education of mankind, and the sages who constructed them contrived to find some historical personages and to superimpose upon them all the best or worst qualities just as they wanted to, and laid down the rules of morals for the conduct of mankind. This can be seen in this way also. That means they got some personality and then actually they gave good qualities to them, bad qualities to that person, and in that way, just to educate mankind, they what is called compose them, if you think in that way. Is it necessary that a demon with 10 heads, like Dasamukha, should have actually lived as stated in the Ramayana? It is the representation of some truth which deserves to be studied, apart from the question whether Dasamukha was a real or fictitious character. It is very difficult to believe that a person will have 10 heads. Impossible. That means even if by freak of nature, a person will, we do not find that type of what is called a person born. So he is saying that it is not necessary to believe that such a person actually lived. The point is that the character that he, what is called exemplified, that is the most important part, and in that way Puranas are important to us. You can now depict Krishna in a still more attractive manner, and the description depends upon the sublimity of your ideal, but there stands the grand philosophic content in the Puranas. So these personifications, the myths around which actually has been construed, if you think that they were not true, that doesn't matter even. Only thing that what they have illustrated is the what is the bone of contention, and in that way they are very educative for the mankind. So this is the way Puranas actually are helped with. As mythology actually helps us. Now let us talk about little bit of what is called Puranas has got different aspects that we see, and those details are really not very important, but to understand why this mythology is important to us, that we need to know. Otherwise, actually it will be very difficult to follow the practices of any religion. That is the most important part. Now let us see about symbols. Symbols are signs for expressing invisible by means of visible or sensuous representation. God we cannot see. We said Brahman, that is further, that means God, beyond God is Brahman, if we say in that way. So they are beyond our comprehension. What to say about beyond the senses. So there should be some sort of representation, what is called a sort of expressing the invisible by means of visible representation. All our contact with the world outside is based on symbol. This is a very important statement. I can tell you that means all the perception that we are having are because of symbols only. All the things that we are perceiving. It is happening in this way. If you just stretch your imagination, you see, I am seeing something which is outside. So actually I am not touching that thing, we are hearing that thing, but still it is coming to my senses. So how actually mind is perceiving that? Because it has been converted into some symbol. It may be a picture or some symbol, and in that way mind is actually perceiving it. So there is no connection between the outside object and what the mind is perceiving. Through symbol only actually we are perceiving them. So in that way it is happening. So symbol is very important for us. Our language is nothing but symbols. The scripts are still more so. Our art or poetry, in fact, every aspect of life is based on symbol. Art means that means a picture is there, so if you see a painting, so naturally you will be remembering of the scene in that way. And nowadays photography is there, so you take pictures and all those things, so you see picture, so you actually think that, well, I have been there in certain place, and in that way I show to my friend, or I myself see. In that way, there are symbols of that original thing which is existing there. So in that way, there are symbols. It has been said that we think in symbols, we act in symbols, we live in symbols, we learn in symbols. So symbol is so important, but we do not really figure out how actually it is working for us. There is a saying from Carlyle's work, the universe is but one vast symbol of God. Nay, if thou wilt have it, what is man himself but a symbol of God? So it has been said to that extent that this world, that means this universe that is there, it is nothing but a symbol of God, because we cannot see what is behind. So something has been projected and we are seeing and perceiving it, and behind is God. So this symbol is the representative of God, in that it has been said. And human beings, we human beings have what is called symbol of God, it has been said. In many places it has been said. We are just mini gods, if you call, only thing that we do not know it. So the purpose of spirituality is to know that. Though man and his life also ultimately are symbolic, there are more evident symbols in man's creation. These symbols are mainly two types based on the ear and the eye. Our symbols which we utilize for our day-to-day life are mostly classified into two categories: sound symbols and visual symbols. In that way actually we see. You see when you will cross the what is called an important road crossing. So you will see there is a visual symbol is there. That means there will be a symbol of a person who is crossing, or there is a color is there. That means a red color or yellow color. So these are symbols. That means in that way we perceive that. And those who cannot really see, for them actually there is sound. Pack like that. In that way there will be sound. Then the blind person will be able to figure out, well, now the road is clear, the cars will not crash on me. So he passes in that way. So these are the symbols. That means that symbol signifies that yes, it is okay to cross now. And that symbol shows us that yes, it is okay to cross the street now. So in that way, symbols are physical, what is called visual, as well as what is called audible, that we see. They are more concrete in nature, thus superimposing an idea on a thing or invoking a deity in an image is nothing but a symbol. Ultimately, this philosophy of symbol actually is utilized for the purpose of spirituality. That is the point. We have symbols. That means you see this picture or the painting of goddess Jagadhatri, is that the puja which we shall perform next Saturday. It is symbolic. That means it is symbolic. That means we do not know how God looks. We do not know. But definitely somebody has seen God or perceived God or imagined God or whatever it may be. In that way it has come down to us, and we find that is very suitable. Suitable in a sense that many persons have worshipped and have found that this symbol helps us. So in that way we worship that. This symbol making tendency is innate in man. Symbols are used for easy transmission of culture also. So different cultures actually have different symbols. You see different festivals are there, so there are symbolic things are there. In Christmas there are certain symbols, where in Thanksgiving we find certain symbols are there. And just now we have what is called, passed this, what is called, very recently. All these, what is called, cultural things we'll find are dependent upon symbols. A symbol retains its value through antiquity, fresh interpretation, and sincere belief. That is the most important part. Some people may believe, some people may not believe. That is obvious. Those who cannot understand or they do not want to understand, for them it is useless. In a symbol, Carlyle has said, there is concealment and yet revelation. Concealment means what is depicting, if somebody does not understand it, will not be able to figure out. So some concealment is there, but those who understand, they will immediately figure out, oh, this is this. So in that way actually it is understandable. So he has said, in a symbol there is concealment and yet revelation. It conceals partly the essential content for an ordinary person, but partly reveals it by suggesting it. So in that way, this picture of God, those who are new, that they have never seen, will never be able to figure out what it is. But those who are little educated or have a curiosity in mind, they will figure out that, oh, this is the representation of Mother Goddess in such and such form, and in that way, immediately that emotion or understanding will come to that person. So in that way it works. Sometimes it is concealed, sometimes it is revealed. When the abstract is quite clear to a discerning mind, a symbol loses its concealing quality, but Even then it is used by advancement for suggesting the abstract. So in that way, those who have understood it, for them it is very valuable because it is really bringing at that emotion and mental state by observing or seeing that or hearing that, if you call it in the case of sound symbol. Of course, then it does not have any binding force to them. Conveying of truth through a fiction, poem, allegory or metaphor is as old as human language. That is true. That means in every language actually there are stories, allegories and all those things, and in that way actually they impart the messages, we call good messages, to the posterity. Because of its allegoric nature, a symbol gives rise to esotericism. That means it is something that needs to be revealed or to be known through a person who actually knows it. Esotericism means that secretiveness. That means this sort of secretiveness is there, but that is revealed through knowledge. This is true of every branch of learning. An uninitiated cannot decipher a chemical formula. This is a very good example. If I write H2O, nowadays of course even in what is called 4th grade or 5th grade also probably that is taught, but in our time actually if you don't enter into college, we will not know what is meant by H2O. These are the symbolic representation of chemical things, chemical formula it is called. But this tendency is more evidence in religion. Religious truth being intangible by nature has given rise to much symbology. It is very difficult to understand religion and spirituality because they are perceivable things. That means one has to practice, and in that way one has to realize those things. But to decipher them through languages, it is very difficult. That is why through symbolic symbols have come into existence. Religious truths being intangible by nature has given rise to much of symbology. Every religion has its own body of symbols which suggest the ultimate reality, the deity and other spiritual truths. So that goes without saying, especially in Hinduism, it is very important, and that is the only practice ordinary people can do that. That is the point, which is really practicable to the extent within their limits. Those who have want to do sincere spiritual practice, they will do something which is very serious, giving up other things. But for ordinary persons, what they will do? They will just linger to these symbols, and in that way they cultivate the spirituality. So some modern psychologists have made a thorough study of symbology. We do not have any idea of presenting their views in hand. But we may not, in one of the books, Jung has said that symbolism of ancient religions and the mythology of many races in connection with the life of ordinary people of the present day. He actually has studied and has given a lot of importance to the symbology, which not only on spiritual point of view, from other point of view have been studied and being studied by the scholars. So in Christianity also you'll find there are symbols, in Hinduism also you'll find many symbols which are really very prominent. One of the symbols that you know, the sound symbol Om, that has come down to us. Actually Om, as we say, that it is the representation of the ultimate reality. Because to the words, this sound symbol, we actually cover what is there in the whole of the universe. Creation, preservation and destruction, if you call it in that way also it is seen. So there are many explanations of that. So in the same way, different sound symbols have been created and they are being practiced. And also there are many gods and goddesses that we see. They are the symbols of the ultimate reality. Swami Vivekananda has said that, well, you see all the gods and goddesses, they are being what is called worshipped and all these things. But if you go to the eulogies or the what is called the way devotional hymns are composed, you will see all the attributes that are being given to the gods and goddesses are really the attributes of the ultimate reality. So in that way actually it is a sort of representation which actually is being repeated in the respect of the ultimate reality. So in that way we are not really worshipping the image as such, but we are really worshipping or cultivating devotion by uttering those what is called spiritual verses. In that way it happens. So in that way we see that in spirituality there is a great importance of these mythology and symbols. And those who are really serious, for them it is good to understand, in a sense that will make one respectable for those symbols and all those things. In every religion, even in the practitioners of religion, you will find that some people in the same religion do not believe these things, do not believe that, but at the same time, it's just going a little deeper into those things, the comprehension of these, what is called esoteric things, secretive things, will be revealed, and that will give us great satisfaction in our life that some things are really unintelligible to us. That means there are some truth behind everything, and in that way we become respectful to all religions and symbols.